Okay, first year, welcome to your S1 homework help. Now what we're going to do is look at the type of sources that we've looked at, that we've covered in class maybe a couple of weeks ago now, primary and secondary sources, and then we're going to look at how they might be useful and what there might be possible drawbacks of the source. So sources, first type of source, a primary source. Primary source was made at the time. For instance, a Roman coin made in 49 AD when the Romans were about is a primary source, in the same sense as a letter from a soldier which was written during World War I is also a primary source. A secondary source is made recently about the past, so it might be a school textbook about World War I, it might be an essay written by you when you're a bit older about the Greek times. Okay, it's just something that's made recently, but it's about the past. That's a secondary source. Now, primary source. Primary source can be useful because the person who made it was an eyewitness. That means they were there at the time and they seen what was going on. So that makes the source useful. A drawback of a primary source might be that the person who made it might be biased. For instance, a soldier writing a letter home in during World War I isn't going to say very nice things about the Germans because that's who he's fighting. So he's going to be a bit biased about the Germans. A secondary source. A secondary source might be useful because the person who made it might be an expert. Now I've underlined that on purpose because they might not be. For instance, a school book written by a historian or a history teacher means that it's written by an expert, so the person who made it was an expert. However, the film Braveheart with Mel Gibson in it, that's not made by an expert. Okay, so it's not definite, but that's just an example of what might make a secondary source useful. A possible drawback of a secondary source is that it might, again that's underlined, be inaccurate. In other words, it might not be entirely spot on with the truth. Back to our example of Braveheart with Mel Gibson, there's a lot of things that aren't quite true in it, so in that sense the source is inaccurate. So there's a couple of reasons that a source might be useful and it might a disadvantage or drawbacks of the source. A lot of it is you thinking yourself. In other words, who made this? Was the person an eyewitness who was there at the time, or were they an expert? And then what is the person saying, or what is the source saying? Are they saying something that's biased, or are they saying something that's inaccurate? So I hope that helps, and good luck with your homework.